Now, I will turn to the unification cost after the German unification. After the Cold War system was demised, and same thing as the former Soviet Union, Germany became unified with the absorptive unification. And many South Korean people had hope that they might achieve unification sooner or later. So many people are talking about the unification cost in South Korea in case of contingency situation in North Korea. So in early 1990s, the Euro-Asian Business Consultancy calculated the unification of the Korean Peninsula. And this cost, it was calculated from the assumption that the South Koreans start to invest money to North Korea from the year 1993 until the year 2000. The South Korean income per capita would be $5,000. And North Korean income per capita would reach $10,000. With these goals on, they calculated total cost. The total cost of unification would be $328 billion in the 1990 prices. Let's look at some details. In order to build up light industry in North Korea, $86 billion are needed. In heavy industry, $65 billion. In non-financial services, $46 billion. Making infrastructure, $42 billion. Agriculture, $29 billion. Financial services, $23 billion. Mining, $15 billion. Power generation, and $15 billion. Totally, it might need $328 billion in order to make North Korean income per capita $1,000 in the year 2000. The total cost of $328 billion would be between 3 and 4% of South Korean GNP. And many experts thought that it was possible for South Korean government to provide the total cost, over $300 billion. Again, this estimation lifts North Korean income per capita to $5,000 in the year 2000. Excuse me, I think I made a mistake. In the year 2000, South Korean income per capita, about $2,000. Excuse me, $20,000, and North Korean income per capita would be $5,000. And South Korea announced the unification tax raise would be 7%. I'm going to mention about this 7% as a unification tax in different slides later. Let us look at the sources of the unification cost in detail. Total, as I said, $320 billion. And out of total, $200 billion would be made from the South Korean investment, either government or people. And also experts thought that it was possible. And Japanese compensation would be about $30 billion because of the Japanese colonization of North Korea for 35 years. When Japan normalized its relations with South Korea, Japanese paid about $300 million for compensation, but at that time, people calculated Japanese compensation fee to North Korea when they normalize each other about $30 billion and $7 billion with other credits and loans. So totally $37 billion will come from Japan. This one. And the rest of them from North Korean savings, from North Korean government and the people and high officials of the party and the military and the government and Kim family, either Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-un, or Kim Jong-il family had some money. So totally $91 billion. So total $328 billion could be secured until the year 2000. But many experts predicted that in case of planned and peaceful process of unification, personally, I doubt it. I don't think there will be a planned and peaceful process of unification will be made in the inter-Korean relations. The total cost of unification would go down about 2%, from 3 to 4% to 2% of South Korean GNP annually. In other words, if two Koreas agreed to have a peaceful unification, the total cost of peaceful unification cost will go down to half of it, half of those that was calculated by many experts. Again, I personally doubt the peaceful unification between the two Koreas. Obviously, we need some wisdom to achieve unification in the future. Okay, what about the unification now? Because the unification cost $300 billion was calculated about 30 years ago. The economist calculated Korean unification cost in the year 2016. As of 2016, Korean unification cost would be $1 trillion. It is 3 times as high as the unification cost of early 1990s, which is about 3/4 of South Korean GDP. And with this unification cost, what would South Korea gain out of the unification? First, South Korea would gain extra 17 million production population. In other words, labor forces. Currently, there are about 36 million workers in South Korea. And in addition to 36 million, South Korea would have 17 million workers. One of the great challenges the contemporary South Korea is facing is the decreasing population, losing population, and decreasing the working forces. So that's why currently there are about 2 million foreign workers, legal and illegal combined, are working within South Korea. And year by year, South Korean economy needs more workers from abroad. Okay, in addition to the working forces, the $20 trillion worth of North Korean natural resources would be taken by South Korean economy. Particularly, North Korean natural resources include rare earth materials that are crucial for semiconducting and electronic industry. Currently, the world's consumption of rare earth materials are coming from, most 90% of it are coming from China. And Korean consumption of rare earth materials are mostly coming from China. So with the unification with North Korea, South Korean economy will have $2 trillion worth of natural resources. And it is also known that there are some reservation of uranium in North Korea. And also South Korea might utilize it too. Other benefits than the workforces and natural resources. Definitely, South Korea would save the defense expenditure. Currently, South Korea spends $45 billion a year for defense and $800 million from North Korea. And believe it or not, South Korea is the 10th largest defense spender in the world. And South Korea is spending more than 2% of its GDP to defense. I think that is too much. I think that is too much. And also, South Korea is the largest importer of military equipment from the United States in the year 2016, 17, and 19. And last year, Japan was the largest importer of American military equipment. In the year 2000, Saudi Arabia was the largest importer. Also at the same time, South Korea might reduce the social cost within South Korea. The so-called South-South conflicts between the conservatives and pro-North Korean people. I mentioned about the South Korean public opinion, which is split between the conservatives and liberals. That takes the huge social cost. Also, the deployment of THAAD and economic sanction and conflict with China would be saved too. Because the unified Korea must not have any nuclear weapons, because the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear free. The Seoul government announced an extra 7% tax increase in case of unification with North Korea. However, there seems to be the tax resistance among younger generations in South Korea. They are saying that they are already having hard times to support their families. The price of housing, price of education of children, and price of everything is very high in South Korea. Also, they don't want to support their families, or their relatives in the North Korea whom they never met or whom they do not know. There's a tax resistance against the unification tax in the contemporary South Korea.